video. So we're gonna jump right into this one. It's not gonna be an extremely long video. It'll be more of short because we're only covering two techniques. That is the consolidated staggered technique and the easy release upper floor slash roof technique. Now, both of these techniques are very good, especially if you're a beginner builder and you're trying to figure out how to use different pieces effectively and keeping your models stable and easy to view for people who are, admiring your models. Hopefully they're admiring your models. And especially if you're showing them off in real life, a lot of these techniques will keep your model from being broken, just in case you've got small fingers around like we do here at Level Up. So we're going to go ahead and switch over to our brick view so we can start on this technique. All right. So first off, we decided to use this model, and we use this model a lot here at Level Up because I feel like it's a good example of a lot of these different techniques. I'm going to pull this up a little bit higher so you guys can see a bit better. Now, we're going to start off with consolidated staggered. Okay, so we talked about the staggered brick technique in an earlier video, but that's really only good if you're using pieces that are a brick high or less. It's great for plates, it's great for bricks, but once you start getting into 2 bricks high and 3 bricks high and then 5 bricks high, like with most panels that you'll be using in your models, it becomes harder to stagger your pieces, which makes it harder to make your models stable. So in this model, this one is in process, by the way. We haven't finished it. It's been about, maybe a year or so since we've worked on this model. Sometimes we lose a little bit of the creative juice, so that's why this model is still only 2 levels. But let's go ahead and look at what consolidated staggered is, okay, or what it is not. So in this model, when we look at the front of it, it looks pretty solid, but actually we can just start pulling off these sections. If this was staggered, staggered all the way around, I'll say, you would not be able to do that. And if we rotate this, we can just pull out different parts, and they just come out because they're made as different modules. Now, a module are parts that fit together to form a whole, or they can be rearranged in different configurations. Okay, so these are little modules that we made that we can work on individually. And just for context, this model was made as a group build for our students to work on together, which is why everything in this model you'll see later on too is so modular. Sorry. But yeah, so in this example, on the second floor, none of this is going to stay on here if I want to start moving it around or playing with it. It's not finished yet, but at the same time, this is a good example of something that is not yet consolidated staggered. Now, if we go to the bottom layer, you'll see that we have the same thing going on, but this is consolidated staggered, okay? And if we look at this one, you see that this is made the same way in sort of a modular, or it has pieces on it that are more than a brick high, which make it hard to stagger. So it has a technique added into it, which is called consolidated staggered. Now, whenever we're using consolidated staggered, we're going to use at least 2 layers of plates and or tiles in order to stagger the model. So if we were to start off like this, right? And this part will all come off because it's all staggered. Okay, if we were to start off like this, okay? And this is just our line of bricks and pieces right here. I would start off with a plate that uses the staggered brick technique, okay? And the reason we call it consolidated is because it's meant you start off with a whole bunch of different non-staggered pieces, and you use pieces above it to consolidate it into less sections of pieces. So this piece right here, this 1x8 plate, has consolidated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 different sections below it into one long section. The same here. This 1x6 has consolidated 1, 2, 3, 4 into one section, and this one has consolidated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a 1x12 right there, but it has consolidated almost 6 sections into one. Now we cannot stop there, because usually after you've done this, you've consolidated these into a few different sections. In this case, we consolidated it into 3. A lot of times it'll still be sort of weak, and in this case, it was hard right here because of this corner piece. You see how it's a 1x1, and that's always going to be hard. It was hard because this still will come off in one section, as you can see, because we consolidated it to one section. That's why we're not going to stop at one layer of plates. We're going to consolidate again, or in this case, we're not actually consolidating. We're really putting a layer of bricks on top in order to give it some more strength and join and get rid of the problem right here, which what we saw with the staggered brick technique is that we do not want to have any bricks that meet together that do not have a piece that binds them together above it, okay? And once you reach the tile level, it's okay to not have any more bricks above it. But in this case, this does need to be strengthened. And I usually say, whenever you have a situation like this where you need to consolidate a lot of things that are more than a brick high, use at least 2 layers. We have one layer of plates and then another layer on top of bricks, okay? So with this right here, we've used the consolidated staggered technique. Now it's all one piece. Okay, for me, I do not like to leave bricks exposed because that can make a model weak. Bricks are much easier to take off. And what you'll see, if you stack 3 plates on top of each other, it's actually much more dense than a brick is, apparently. So I made this other layer on top of here in order to give it a little bit more strength. And what you'll see is that all of this is staggered too. Nothing is lined up with a seam. It's all staggered across. And that's how we use consolidated staggered in order to get more of these more complex looking designs like this. And if I didn't use consolidated staggered on this, it would probably be very weak, like you see these modules in progress are up here. Okay? And then we can also use consolidated staggered in a bigger way. And I'm sure some of you have already seen this in the model because of what I just did with the top piece. But if you look at this right here, if I pick this up, you see how this is flopping around and all that kind of stuff. I can actually use consolidated staggered with the actual modules in order to keep these two together. So you saw how these were in 2 pieces. Now I used the section above it in order to join the section below it into one, right? So consolidated staggered is meant to condense multiple sections into one section or two sections or to a manageable number of sections so your model is not weak. Okay? So that is how consolidated staggered works. If I was to finish off up here at the top with the consolidated staggered technique, what I would do is start with a layer of plates to consolidate all of these different sections. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I would want to probably get this one consolidated into probably one this way, maybe two this way. Maybe I would consolidate them into maybe 2 by 10 sections, you know? So if I was to do that, I'd start off with, of course, the layer of plates. Then I would move on to a layer of tiles so I can do the top section, because this castle is actually supposed to be 4 floors high. So this is the bottom layer, second layer, and then you have a throne room layer which goes above here, and then also the top layer which has like the whole thing. So this is supposed to be about, I'd say about 1.5 foot tall castle. Okay, so that is consolidated staggered. Remember, consolidated staggered is best used when you have sections that are more than a brick high, that use things like panels and whatnot in order to consolidate them down into a lower amount of panels or sections and make them stronger so they don't fall apart as you're building. Okay, so the next one, or the next technique we're going to go over, is the easy release roof system. Okay, or this is an upper level easy release system. Now this system is specifically if you have a model like this that you see, it's got all 4 walls to it. It's not a facade, which a facade is like, you know, where you have a model that is just the front of it. It's not a vignette. It's not a, you know, something that you can just see into, kind of like a TV set that we saw before with the Big Bang Theory model that our students or campers did here. The easy release system technique is meant specifically to make it so you can take off roofs easy. And that is very, very simple, especially if you're using the staggered brick technique. All you have to do is put a layer of tiles on top with a few studs in between, just to help the level get fixed in place. What I have seen is that usually a 16 by 16 section, and that's like a quarter of a regular normal size base plate, requires at least 2 studs on each side of your section. So like 1 for each corner, maybe. Okay? Or you can do 2 on the left, 2 on the right, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. I found that that's a good rule to go by when it comes to fixing a roof on there that's easy to remove and doesn't just fall off like crazy. Okay? And then if you're doing an 8 by 8 section, you'll probably only need 2 studs, and the rest can be tiles. But essentially all you're doing is wherever the roof or the next level connects, you are going to put all tiles around it, and then however many studs you need in order to make sure that top part doesn't just fall off, and it doesn't just get dislodged easily when you're moving it around and stuff like that. We saw yesterday with our little tiny miniature apartment model that this one only took 2 studs right here. All we did was use tiles and then a 1 by 2 plate. We put it on the bottom there, and this will, you can turn this upside down and shake it, and that top will not come off. So as you can see, I mean, even with that, that's a 6 by 8 section, and all it needed was 2 studs. Now we tried it with 1 stud at one point, but that would not work. Okay, so we had to use at least 2 studs in order to keep it from shifting and whatnot. So you can also, little bonus lesson here, you can also use this same easy release system. I'm going to show you from the bottom here. You can use it for making modular sections. Now, like we said before, this model was built so at least 6 people could be working on it at one time. And the more modules you make for it, the more people that can help build it, okay? So all of these modules are removable, and you'll see at the bottom here that these modules are held in place by just these jumper plates, and then you've got bricks on the bottom for them to hook into, okay? And I had to make this one this way because I wanted to add some play functions into it. I love play functions on models. There's a function right here where the stairway will drop in and drop them right down to a jail cell. And then also we've got some play functions right below the oops, sorry about that. The mouse got hit. Okay. Wow, lots of interesting things happening today. But if we look right here, the reason I made it so that we could so the floor was a little bit higher was that I wanted a system where we could eject a minifigure out of here. And we've got a C3PO in here, so he can be our example. And so I'm going to put him in here. This is our little escape chute. You got to put him in there all the way down. And then you pull out this little pin, and then the person is ejected, okay? And you can see below there's a whole system down here, so we can put that, escape system in it. But we wouldn't have been able to do that unless we built it up a little bit higher, and these sections were removable, so you can work on it and basically adjust it if need be and work on it on its own. So that is the lesson today. That was Consolidated, Staggered, and Easy Release Systems. The key to those two things before we go: Consolidated, Staggered, use at least 2 layers of plates and or tiles. And remember that the whole point of using that is to consolidate sections that are more than a brick high. If they're only a brick high, there's really no reason to use Consolidated, Staggered, because you can just stagger the bricks in the first place. Okay? So use Consolidated, Staggered when you've got sections that are more than 1 brick high, or you've got panels, or you've got designs that you want to keep, like if you're using the masonry brick pieces and you want to keep them in one row on top of each other, you might use it in that situation too, in order to keep that that look to it. And then number 2, easy release, use tiles and at least 2 studs for every, I'd say, 8x8 sections. At least 2 studs for each 8x8 section. The more studs you put on it, though, the harder it'll be to remove your roof. So you want to watch using too many studs or too little studs. Like right here on this section, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 studs on that entire section. And even that, it's kind of hard to release sometimes. So just make sure that you're using the right amount of studs. Try out different amounts of studs to see what works for you. Experiment with things. And don't be afraid to just take it apart and start over again if it's not working out right. Sometimes these things don't work the first time you do them. So it's always important to be prepared to experiment and not be stuck on just one idea when you're building. So that is it for the lesson for today. I want to say thank you for watching, and do your best. Never give up. Keep on leveling up. We'll see you later.